The United States is reeling from its latest act of political violence. The shooting of Charlie Kirk has set off a wave of anger and misinformation, much of it stemming from the president himself. In this hyperpolarized era, we are forced to ask, are political killings becoming normalized? Welcome to the Politics of New America. On the show today, we discuss the rising wave of political violence. Then we'll dive into the threat of government shutdown and why it's become a never-ending American crisis. I'm Nathan Stone, and with me today is producer Josh Carmody.
Hell of a week. Hell of a week, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to be. I feel like we see it every single time, but my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I had a totally different totally different topic planned, but all anyone is talking about, and honestly, news-wise, I think Charlie Kirk has sucked up more oxygen this week than almost any political killing in my lifetime that I can remember. And maybe it's just because I'm so dialed into the news at this point, but it's just everywhere. All of the foreign services, it's an inescapable thing. And maybe it was just because it was done on camera, and so we've been able to see the whole thing. But this has been an absolutely disturbing week for American politics, and if I would love to have skipped this topic, but here we are.
Yeah, no, we can't. Yeah, this week has been 5 years. So it that brief period of time when they did not know who the shooter was bananas. Like, just the stuff that was coming out of people's mouths, the stuff that's being posted online. I mean, there is just so much of right-wing people declaring war and we're not gonna stand for this. I saw one video of a guy who was like, you think you can get away with this? And then he started to go into his own rendition of the Kit Kat bar theme song,
like the give me a break.
Yeah, but like saying it in like a gruff, grumbly way, like, give me a break. Give me a break. And the video I was watching was a compilation, so they skipped past it. So I don't know where he went with it. I can only imagine that it was slurs that rhymed. So, I'm willing to make that assumption at this point.
Yeah. This reaction from elements of the American right, I think, is totally beyond the pale, but it does speak to the influence that Kirk had amongst a certain type of Republican right-wing person in the United States. And before we get into, I don't really want to talk about Charlie Kirk, the guy. That's not really how this show operates, but what I want to talk about is kind of what we've seen because of this and what we might see going forward. So to sum up, if
occasionally I will provide some Charlie Kirk the guy for context.
There we go.
Just so we're aware.
So Charlie Kirk, for anyone who has escaped the endless media coverage of this, of course, one of the leading voices at Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk was a propagandist more than he was anything else. You'll see him being called a lot of things over, the past week or so. The news is really kind of stuck on right-wing activist. I don't think that is the appropriate term for him. What he did was mainly propaganda, and he was very, very good at it. A lot of his work dealt with going to American colleges and challenging the liberal ideas that they found there.
It would not be reductive to call him a podcaster with right-wing views.
Absolutely. But he did a lot more than just the podcast. The podcast, of course, being a huge vehicle for him. But yeah, he was involved with a lot of different things. As far as the man himself, I find his views to be absolutely despicable.
Oh, abhorrent.
And what I'll say on his death about his death is that I think it's best summed up by the man himself in his words. He wouldn't want me to feel empathy for him because, to quote him, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. Also, I think the manner of his death, which was he was shot, I think that was probably the way that he would want to go, considering he says gun violence deaths are the cost of keeping our Second Amendment rights. So taking those two quotes together, Charlie, I mean, he died doing what he loved, defending Second Amendment rights, and he would be angry with me if I were to feel empathy for him, so I won't. And yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Charlie through Charlie. Thanks, Charlie. Now, Josh, I know you've got some probably big thoughts on Charlie.
Oh, do I? I was getting them out of my system before I got onto a microphone in which I'm paid to be in front of.
Excellent. So, what I wanted to kind of cover today, and you brought this up and kind of set me up perfectly for it, is the reaction from the American right, to Charlie's death, and the amount of voices, and I'm sure some of them are not legitimate voices in terms, I'm sure there are some bots out there, whatever, but the amount of influencers, the amount of people on social media calling for civil war in this case was more than a little sobering. Because I find it extraordinary that if my side of the political spectrum, which admittedly is basically an endangered species in the United States, but if my side of the political spectrum controlled every facet of the American federal government and had been almost without any sort of major roadblocks pushing through its policies for the last, we're at 8-9 months now. I don't know that I would feel the need to bay for blood and civil war if an influencer got shot, right? Or like, even now, Charlie Kirk, not a politician, but a political figure.
Oh, yeah.
So I was left with this kind of strange feeling of, okay, clearly everything that the Trump administration has been doing isn't enough for these people, right? And that's a much scarier prospect than just, owning the libs, winning, right? And you have won. You are winning. Your guys are in power. Your guys control every facet of the federal government. And you're calling for civil war. That makes me think that for a slew of right-wing America, nothing is going to be enough until there is open violence, until they can settle whatever scores, real and imagined, that they have. And that puts us at a very kind of dangerous trajectory here. If there's not anything that your nominally democratically elected representatives can do when they're all on your team, if that's not enough, then we get to the point where this kind of conflict becomes inevitable, and this kind of political violence becomes normalized, right?
I love the really roundabout way that you quoted JFK there, because I believe that he did have something to say about that. When you make peaceful resolution impossible, then you make violent retribution kind of like what people, the only thing they have. I think the thing that is, I guess, not surprising to me, but something that people need to be thinking about is, yes, they're in control of everything. Then why is it that the Democrats are still this huge problem? They're still they're simultaneously, when the Republicans are in power, both the super weak, bleeding heart demon rats that want everyone to be trans and they can't throw a baseball and stuff like, and they're all weak and they don't know what guns are, and they'll lose really easily to a civil war because only right-wing people buy guns. Not true. The far left is packing. And then also they're so powerful as to pull off simultaneous conspiracies of a fake Jeffrey Epstein like log in which he's also potentially innocent because what was anyone arrested for, and pulling off a like assassination that is meant to smear things or what have you. Like there's it's just the flooding the zone with shit,
Yeah, it's interesting because the enemies of the right always have to be both weak and pathetic, but a monumental threat to everything you've ever held dear. And so it's very hard trying to square that circle. But what's even more kind of I think disturbing here is that the more we learn about this the suspect in this case, the more complicated it seems his views were politically.
And he doesn't had any at all.
That's it.
And that's really where it lands. Yeah. It's like, I think this dude was terminally online and crazy.
Yeah.
I think that might be where it lands. And then it's like, yeah, no one gets to grab them for their side. Like this isn't the Mario to their Luigi. This isn't their Lord and Savior on the right. No, it's just a person who has zero views. This is the Joker. Like this, some people just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah. And that in itself, because the FBI has coined it nihilistic violent extremism, which, if that's not a sign of the times we're living in, I don't know.
Is this a recent quote or is this from another time?
So this is kind of current.
They just said this. Okay.
So this isn't for particularly like the Charlie Kirk shooter, but a whole subset of people who are not motivated by traditional means and not affiliated with traditional political movements. And so, for example, the man that tried to assassinate Trump at his rally.
Okay, the rally one.
Yeah. So Thomas Matthew Crooks. That was at the Pennsylvania campaign rally. That was the ear. And
when Trump's lightning fast reflexes protected him.
Just saying, yeah. I mean, if you look at the video, he goes into full Neo bullet time, just dodging those.
I mean, historically, you can't pin him down. He's definitely looking from left to right at all times.
So Crooks, there's little record of any political stances whatsoever, and the FBI, previous to the new FBI that we have now,
said that's new with an NU.
That is, yeah,
and a hyphen.
That Crooks also researched then President Joe Biden as a possible target. So this isn't necessarily it's not really a left-right thing, and it probably isn't a left-right thing with the shooter for Kirk, but when the president of the United States comes out before anyone knows anything and blames the mythical radical left of America, the left that I would just love to ask anyone, any right-wing politician, any right-wing influencer to present me with the radical left. Find them.
Yeah. Be careful. I'm going to get black bagged in the night and put on stage somewhere. It's definitely me. I have too many cut-off versions of clothes.
Okay, so it's Josh. All right. Well, we've got...
They'll dye my hair a little bit just to like add something to it, but it's
blue
me.
highlights. Yeah. when the president comes on and he says, yeah, that this is the work of the radical left, when in fact this is the maybe side effect of the rampant normalization of violence of all kinds in our society, plus the mental health crisis that we just kind of remember every now and again and then forget about until something tragic happens.
We remember about it every time the shooter's white. We certainly don't recall any of that if they're a different shade.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Royal we here. Okay.
So one of the reasons why I kind of felt we had to address this, other than the fact that it's very kind of forward in the news right now, is that political violence in the United States is getting more and more common, especially kind of during this new era.
Well, we had the Hortmans, I think 6 months ago.
Yeah.
They were it was a lawmaker in Minnesota. Her husband, their dog, were all killed in a singular like home invasion shooting where the shooter pretended to be a police officer, something that we are all too familiar with here in Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. It happened several years ago that a man pretended to be an RCMP officer. He had repainted a car and went on a massive killing spree, and mm-hmm. it was a huge deal here. And for years there was committees and investigations and many things. Working at Global went through a lot of the footage of that crazy stuff.
It was hugely scarring to the community here, for sure.
And so for that to happen there, and it disappears in a couple weeks. Trump said that he wasn't going to call Governor Walz, Tim Walz, the man who ran for vice president along with Kamala Harris, said it was a waste of time. He did not go to the funeral either, and they didn't. I don't believe they put the flags at half mast.
They did not.
They did not. Okay,
no.
Yeah. I knew there was certain times where they've pushed against it and maybe did, so I wasn't sure. But so yeah, that happened then. So that is very recent. That's extreme political violence.
Absolutely.
Even I mean, not to say that like a guy getting shot with a hunting rifle in front of a crowd of people isn't extreme, but he wasn't an elected official.
And in the past 14 months or so, not only have we seen everything that you mentioned here, there was a shooting at a campaign office for Kamala Harris in Arizona.
Yep.
The Pennsylvania governor's residence was firebombed while he and his family were sleeping inside. And of course, there were 2 assassination attempts on Trump during the presidential elections. And that's not a complete list, but I think those are some of the bigger ones.
And these are all within a year, correct?
Yeah, within about a year, about 14 months, yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's statistics showing increased threats towards politicians, judges, and other kind of government officers, as well as Capitol Police, so the police in D.C., reported an increase in threatening incidents to about 14,000 so far this year from 9,000 for all of 2024. Now, I'm always a little suspicious of statistics released by police departments, especially when they're subjective like this, but that is a massive increase. So it's a pattern that we're seeing kind of start to play itself out in American political life. And House Speaker Mike Johnson did an interview on CNN this past Wednesday and basically told them that, the members of Congress are feeling nervous and want more security. And he said, they're exposed all the time everywhere. And now, Republicans being afraid of gun violence is, oh boy, guys. Don't know how how do you feel?
Well, I mean, we could probably tell them how Charlie Kirk felt. To quote Charlie Kirk, in terms of gun violence in a society that has Second Amendment rights, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I guess they just didn't mean them then. Or maybe they were just talking about the kids. I don't know.
Well, and that's something that I've like brought up to other people, not people that are on the side of Charlie Kirk, but just saying to people, it's like every time there's been a school shooting, and I want to say this to all the people who watched the same video that I did of Charlie Kirk being shot on stage, because I did watch the like videos where you could see it up close. That's what happened to the children in those schools every single time. Sometimes more than one bullet passed through their body. And that's what it looked like. And they didn't care.
No. Boy, it sure is different when it's someone that you listen to or someone that you have a parasocial relationship with through a podcast.
Just a beautiful white man who now is an angel. Tiny face, but I don't hold it against him.
I'm so glad you brought up school shootings, though, and that's the first time I've ever said that sentence, because it makes the point for me that I think is probably the most salient of this discussion. So I looked at, and there was a school shooting the day that Kirk died.
Yep.
It just
Colorado,
got a
I
little
believe.
buried in the news. Yeah. And so you remember Columbine. You would have been just a little younger than me.
I was very young, but
Yeah.
it was a very big event. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
similar to many other things around my age at that time of 9/11 and other things. I was around the similar age, and I remember very much the Bowling for Columbine documentary, which really brought it into light for a lot of people and how dramatic it was.
Yeah. So Columbine was what I think it was in a lot of ways was a point of no return. And it didn't seem like that at the time. Columbine was the first time that I had ever heard of a school shooting. It wasn't the first school shooting in history, but
No,
it was,
there were
it was
some.
so violent, and it was so, we had the security camera footage, right? We saw the guys in trench coats walking through the halls. It was so visceral, and it
was coldly calculated.
Yeah, it sparked...
I think is because Stephen King, I think under Richard Bachman, had written a book about a school shooting sometime in the 80s, maybe like late 80s or something like that. And even it was considered like too much in its time because of the very, very few school shootings that had happened that had potentially inspired it.
Yeah.
And that's about 12 years off the mark, maybe more.
And because of Columbine and everything that happened, the huge media attention that it got, the movie Bowling for Columbine, or the documentary, it kind of wedged itself into the psyche of a lot of people that were alive to witness it or heard about it on the news, and it became kind of this marker, right?
Yeah.
And so ever since then, we've kind of had Columbine as this anchor point of when did school shootings start to get out of control in the United States, and that was really the first one. And at the time it seemed like a crazy outlier, just an incredible tragedy that, how did this happen? And now we have school shootings regularly in the United States. We see them. And CNN put together a poll. This is back in 2018.
Yeah.
But they tracked school shootings by country from January 2009 to May 2018. And so they ranked the world on a list. So South Africa was third with six school shootings. Mexico was second with 8 school shootings. The United States was first with 288 school shootings. Can you remember more than 3 or 4 of those? Because this is before.
If I try,
yeah.
But even then, like naming them specifically by school, I probably couldn't get to 10.
And so what's happened in the decades since Columbine is not that we haven't had tragedies at that scale. It's not that we haven't had, hundreds and hundreds of children lose their lives needlessly. It's that it's become normalized, right? This is something that is absolutely heinous and in any other country in the whole world would be the cause for immediate soul searching. And the United States is averaging about 87 school shootings a year. Now, people will dispute that because different criteria are used by different, statisticians when they're creating these lists, right? Were there casualties? Were there not casualties? How many casualties were there? But
I don't think it matters.
I don't
to
think
the
it
people
matters.
that were there.
Yeah.
I think when really splitting hairs on that. I mean, especially when Trump said, "Oh, we just got to get over it."
Yeah,
just got to get over it.
So this is the kind of inflection point that we might be seeing with American political violence. And American political violence has always been there in the background. We could do a really interesting history of all the times presidents got shot. And maybe we will. That'd actually be a really good episode.
I was like pretty sure when Lincoln got shot, people had a lot of feelings about it on both sides, including the guy who did it.
So what I think people should really be worried about here isn't so much this one particular act. It's that they're getting more frequent, and the end result of all of this could be a violence-based breakdown in the American political order because of near constant violence and killings. And this isn't sustainable. What is happening here, right? These calls for civil war, that's not things you would have seen, 20, 30 years ago, right? People doing it proudly and openly because one person got shot.
Yeah, I mean, I lived through the Bush era, and while there was major political discourse, I'm certainly not going to sugarcoat it like it was all hunky-dory and we all got along and we're like, oh, well, you voted for Bush, but hey, you're still my neighbor. Like, no, it wasn't that either then, but it's only escalated since. And the kind of discourse that was around that time when people spoke out against it, there seemed to be repercussions, or at least the ability to explain yourself. Because I remember there were people who had things to say about Bush, but then were getting like ratted out by like people at their gym, and then guys would show up in black suits and be like, oh, I hear you taking shit about George W. Bush. And that happened.
Yeah.
That did happen. That's equally as scary as things that are going on now, but it's only increased. I mean, there's people in masks taking people off the street now. Like it's not gotten better. It certainly wasn't better back then, so I'm not like wishing for these good times, but you can see the threads to it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. This has been kind of developing for decades now, and we're getting to the point that I think we might see political violence become just a part of the American experience, just like we see with school shootings now that they've tried nothing and they're all out of ideas to stop school shootings. Yeah. And the only thing that might help with the the threat of unending political violence is the fact that the political class would very much like to protect themselves and are motivated to do something about it.
You know what doesn't help is Gavin Newsom being like, "Hey, Charlie Kirk, great guy."
That does not help.
I'm so glad that I already said on this show, not sure about that guy.
Yeah.
And then the other shoe dropped like a tungsten rod from the upper atmosphere. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it was like, thank God, there it is. You, Kristen Chenoweth, and Selma Blair can all get into a rocket and fly to whatever new colony you're intending to start.
Yeah, this is the thing. Gavin Newsom is at best a centrist liberal, and that is what he has always been. And liberalism is far too, at times, conciliatory with the far right and.
Well, they don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
No.
And I think it would. I'm fairly certain that Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The moderate white who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice."
That's the one.
And that is absolutely something we're seeing right
now. So. That's kind of I think where we can leave this particular one for now. We'll see how it all plays out, but it's we saw a lot of really concerning stuff and some terrible misinformation. Also, The Guardian published and retracted an article that was shared, I think, about 1 trillion times, on the right before it was.
Oh, was that the one where the guy said that he went to school with him?
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, what do you remember of him?" And it's like, "Oh, I haven't seen him in like 15 years."
Yeah.
It was like a absurdly long time.
Now, changing gears a little bit here, I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about what in the world is going on with U.S. government shutdowns, because it's a never-ending crisis before Congress, these shutdowns, and it doesn't happen pretty much anywhere else in the world. And so I kind of thought it would be an interesting thing for us to kind of delve into. Why is that the case? And so how did all of this government shutdown nonsense start? Well, it really wasn't a problem until the 1980s. So in 1980, Attorney General Benjamin Savedy issued a legal opinion requiring it. So basically what happened was there were funding gaps in programs because Congress, back in the 80s, much like Congress today, doesn't always get things done the fastest. And sometimes funding would run out before they issued new funding. And before that, these kind of gaps were kind of ignored a lot of the time. They'd be made up later. It was always kind of just a norm to say that, okay, well, we know the funding's going to run out, but Congress is going to get to it. We're going to keep things rolling, and when we'll make adjustments retroactively, basically. But Savedy, when he took a look at it, he was like, actually, no, constitutionally, if Congress hasn't approved funding past this point, you cannot go past this point. That is unconstitutional for federal programs and services. So even still, his opinion wasn't consistently adhered to throughout the 1980s. But by the 1990s, all funding gaps that lasted longer than a few hours have led to a government shutdown. And as of the last government shutdown, as of today, there's been 10 funding shutdowns that have led to federal employees being furloughed. So this is something that is kind of in the Constitution, but was just interpreted in a different way before 1980. And then after 1980, because of this requirement for Congress to basically have their shit together, it started causing real problems. So there's kind of three key factors when it comes to why this happens in the United States and not elsewhere. The first one is the power of the purse, which we've talked about on the show before. The Constitution grants Congress the power to authorize all government spending. Please, someone tell Trump that. I would, but he doesn't return my calls.
We've talked about the power of the purse so much on the show that we should be selling shirts that are just
say
like
the
glitter power of the purse. It's a crop top. Like, I would absolutely wear a crop top that said power of the purse in glitter.
Excellent. This you're going to make it way too easy for them to spot you as one of the radical left. The Constitution grants Congress that power, and it ensures that no money can be spent from the Treasury without Congress's explicit approval through appropriations bills. Then there's the Anti-Deficiency Act. This is a law that prohibits agencies from spending money or incurring obligations for which no appropriation has been provided by Congress. So you can see how these two things together cause shutdowns. And then finally, there was that legal interpretation that we mentioned in the 80s. And that was kind of a mandate that agencies cease operations when there was a lap in funding. And that turned those old funding gaps, which everyone kind of just ignored a little bit, into full-on shutdowns. So the reason why you don't see this in other areas or in other nations is that, for example, the parliamentary system, which is popular amongst the majority of liberal democracies in the world, the executive, so usually the prime minister, has to maintain the confidence of the legislature and pass a budget bill. If that budget bill fails to pass, the government will typically face a no confidence vote, leading to brand new elections rather than shut down services. Yeah. So in that way, it's tied in. And so, for example, here in Canada, where we right now have a governing Liberal majority, the Prime Minister is a member of the Liberal Party. He is chosen by the Liberal Party to serve as Prime Minister. And the Liberals have a majority in the House, which means they can pass those bills freely. And so their budgets will not fail. And so you would never see a government shutdown. Now, there are other kind of presidential systems, republics, that also don't face this problem. And that's because those systems grant the executive branch the authority to continue government operations during budget impasses. This is, if the United States wanted to fix this problem, this would be the easiest way to do it, would be to amend the Constitution and allow the executive to just kind of caretake government without having Congress, or without Congress having yet passed the latest round of funding.
Is this the government version of like in a Looney Tunes cartoon where someone's walking along with a bag of cash and then someone comes and pokes a hole in the bottom of it and the coins start pouring into their bag and the other person just doesn't notice? Is this my way of explaining to myself like I'm 5? Is this working, or do we need something simpler?
No, I think you're certainly on a path. But what it really comes down to in this case is the makeup of the congressional houses, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if say Republicans had a supermajority in the House, in the Senate, and they have everything, there would be no problem passing their budget bill.
And right now they just have a majority, not a supermajority.
They do not have a supermajority. Okay. So a simple majority is good enough in Congress. As thin as that majority is for the Republicans, it is enough to pass their budget.
Yeah.
They don't have to talk to the Democrats. They don't have, they...
Well, clearly they keep voting on the Epstein files and it doesn't go through, even though a couple of Republicans would be like, maybe we should this time, which, hey, political hater, it means nothing.
Yeah.
It seems to always be 51 to something.
Exactly. So where the Republicans are in trouble right now is in the Senate.
Okay.
So they have a majority in the Senate. They do control the Senate, but they don't have the majority they need to avoid the Democratic filibuster. So basically, the filibuster is a really fancy way of saying, I get up and speak in the Senate, and I don't stop talking, and I suck up all the oxygen until we run out of time. And that delays you being able to pass this bill and either stymies the legislation, forces you to come to the table and negotiate with me, or with some legislation just simply kills it because you run out of time. So the Democrats have, in this case, that in their arsenal. They can filibuster the Republican budget. Now, oh, bless those little Democrats. Because they can't do anything.
Pesky little Democrats.
They can't do anything without needlessly henpecking themselves about what they should be doing, and did they focus group it enough. So right now there's a split over whether to take a stand, which is utterly insane to me, because what are you doing here otherwise? What would you say you do here, Democrats?
This is like committee inception.
Yeah.
Like we need a committee to form a committee to tell us what to do.
Yes. There's a faction of Democrats that want a continuing resolution. So a continuing resolution is a stopgap. Basically, it says, we don't agree with the Republican budget, but we don't want to shut down the government. So together with the Republicans, we're going to make a very temporary budget for this amount of time. And they can choose it to be whatever. And we will pass this instead of passing the budget. And we just give that can a big old kick down the road. And then in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, we're here again and we're trying to figure this out. And so there is a faction of Democrats that want to do that, because they're arguing that that would give everyone more time for a comprehensive deal. And if you know how little Congress has been doing during this sitting, my question is, why haven't you taken the time leading up to this to do it? But I'm not in Congress, so maybe they're very busy. Then there is a faction that is more aggressive and wants to fight this battle, because right now we're headed for a September 30th deadline for this budget. So AOC, obviously one of the more aggressive Democrats, she is very much on the we need to fight this battle side. She was saying, I think we need to have a high price, and so that price could be saving the American Care Act. Because the Democrats, of course, being the weaker party here, what they're trying to do is limit the damage that the Republicans can do to the things they like in this budget, right? So when AOC says this, she's saying, if the Republicans want their budget and they want Democratic support, we can hold their feet to the fire and we can get them to continue funding programs that they want to cut, but we're not going to let them. Now, the Senate Majority Leader, Republican John Thune, he's insisting on a clean CR, and that's a continuing resolution. A clean continuing resolution basically is we're going to keep doing everything as it is right now. No funding increases, no decreases, nothing. Yeah. So that's what they're floating. On the Republican side of things, they have a couple of options. Firstly, they could shut down the government. They could just say, no, we're not going to be held hostage by the radical left, and we're going to let government shut down. And there's some thinking that, well, this would be a pretty great way to distract from a lot of the problems that they've been having. However, the issue with government shutdowns is it's really bad for so many people. Anyone who needs federal government services, for example, it's actually really bad for the economy because a lot of businesses rely on federal government data to make very expensive decisions. So every time you have a government shutdown, if it lasts for more than a few hours, you start knocking little bits off of the your economic growth for that quarter. Right now, the other thing that they could do is work with whatever Democrats will work with them to get a continuing resolution through. Right now, the GOP controls 53 seats. They require 60 votes to pass their funding bill or, continuing resolution, whatever way they go with it. So if they can get some Democrats on side, they're probably fine. All of this is going to come to a head either after a continuing resolution or by the end of this month. And we'll have a much better idea of what will happen here. But a lot of important programs and funding is kind of on the table to be axed. And there's various expiring grants and tax credits that kind of need to be either cut or reinstated. And so one of the more likely scenarios is that the Republicans kind of bend to get enough Democrats on side. They lose some Republican votes from hardliners who, absolutely do not want to fund whatever programs the Democrats want funding. But if they can pick up enough Democratic votes, that doesn't matter. So it really is a balancing act for everyone here. And this is something that has become more and more prevalent in the American political system, these shutdowns. The longest shutdown of all time was actually back in Trump 1. The
Wait, of ever in the American government.
Yes,
It was
long. It was a 35-day shutdown that spanned from.
It's almost like we're living in precedented times.
Yeah,
everything's
so precedented.
Last season was unprecedented. Everything's precedented now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know, girl. Like, shit.
So yeah, that was that kind of spanned a little bit of 2018 and 2019. And it was caused by a dispute over expanding the barriers on the border wall. Mm-hmm. That was that one.
Oh, the one that they're painting black on their side to stop people from climbing over?
Yes.
What, are you stopping people from escaping during the day?
So the other two longest, the second longest happened in 95-96 during Bill Clinton's administration, over opposition to major spending cuts. Mm-hmm. And so that, I believe, was during the time when Clinton was president, but the Republicans had control of Congress.
Yeah.
And
so coming up on his second win, I think.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, too, that the president of the United States, if he doesn't like a budget, because it is a bill, it's an appropriations bill, but it's a bill, can veto it.
Yeah.
So if the Republicans and Democrats work together on this thing, they get something through, and Trump decides that it's not good enough, he can veto it, and everything gets reset and sent back down to them. And
So there's a Sisyphus joke in here somewhere, I'm sure, but I don't know. I'm too stupid to make it.
And finally, there was a 16-day shutdown in 2013 during the Obama administration caused by a dispute over implementation of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. So we've seen in kind of the last 30 years, the 3 longest government shutdowns in American history. Now, of course, it's only got about a 50-year history of happening, but we're starting to see this become more and more of a theme, and these shutdowns can be used as a weapon as well, right? There's a lot of, especially in the Republican Party, there's a lot of people who campaigned on draining the swamp, on basically destroying the federal government and making it as ineffective as possible. And so if they go back to their constituents and they're like, yeah, we shut it down, that plays well to a big part of the Republican base. So it's a tactic that they can use more and more. And like everything else that the Trump administration has done, even when it gets reversed, right? Even when funding starts up again, or when they lose in court and a judge orders them to stop doing whatever thing they're doing, they've already done the damage. They've already weakened the institution. They've already crippled whatever it was that they sought to cripple. So because the wheels work so slowly in government, and especially in the federal government, it's a really good tactic if you are trying to basically weaken the United States federal government, is to let this happen. The only problem is, of course, eventually the people you do care about, the billionaires, will start breathing down your neck to get things going again, because they deeply rely on government, federal government services. So, yeah, if you're ever curious as to why governments, the United States government shuts down and other governments do not, this is kind of the reason.
Yeah. The closest thing we got in Canada is that they do seem to get like a summer break.
They get a nice fat summer break.
I'm like, this is, I don't know. I don't know if I think I'd want them working as opposed to just getting clips of them like finishing marathons and going water skiing. Like, hey, like people can't live.
They get a good winter break too. It's it's wild.
God.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well,
you know what though? Could be worse. All right, folks. This was a bit of a kind of a heavier episode, especially the first half, but hope you've enjoyed it. And oh boy, we'll see you next week with whatever exciting news
possibly could happen. What could possibly happen in between now
just
and
one
the
week?
Next episode? Yeah, I feel like the last one we were just so like kind of burnt out but reserved, and then that happened. Like literally right now, like if we want to just go other places. In London, there was 100,000 person strong, very right wing, very anti-immigration march, and my mom is there on vacation now. I hope she doesn't take the text that I said, "How's London?" ! Like I was being facetious, because I honestly didn't know when I sent it.
Was not trying to be.
So sorry. But I mean, lots of crazy stuff has happened. People are on edge on both sides, more one side than the other. There's a little bit more sand weighing down the golden idol on one side of the scale than the other. But stuff's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and until next week, when we're maybe recording from a bomb shelter or some other hidey hole. I
Yeah, we were saved from a frontline duty, which I think I I said we were probably going to end up on the front lines somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Hey, still some front lines are open there. Hey, maybe we'll be in Poland covering the war.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Until next time, folks. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice, and tell all your friends. The Politics of New America is hosted by Nathan Stone and produced by Josh Carmody. You can follow us on Blue Sky at Politics New America. This episode is sponsored by Leverage Assistants. Finding the right assistant can turbocharge your career, your business, and give you back precious time every day. Finding the right person isn't easy, and that's where Leverage Assistants comes in. They take care of every step in the process of matching you with a top-performing assistant that understands you and your business. Leverage only hires the best of the best, the top 1% of executive assistants, to pair with their clients. They also do regular feedback and productivity checks to make sure that you are completely satisfied with the match. Find out what having elite help can do for your productivity with Leverage Assistants. Follow our referral link in the show notes of this episode to get started.
This has been a Haunted Mouse production. Cut that out.